The works in Galactic Garden are literally a response to my experience of working with some of these magical plants in the Amazon rainforest. I had the opportunity for this commission project, which was commissioned by Arts Brookfield, which is an amazing, super supportive group for artists bringing artwork to commercial and public spaces all over New York City. I used a wide range of materials in these tapestries, from hand dyed, natural dyed alpaca to various bright rainbow colored synthetic yarns, and then these special iridescent yarns, because I wanted to mimic this crystalline glow of the forest that I experienced. This connection between weaving and our current technology is really special. I found through research, women with textile experience were hired to weave the copper wires of what was called the LOL rope memory that eventually launched the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. One of the lineages that I've studied is the Shipibo Canibo lineage that come from the Amazon of Peru. I learned that the textiles are a pattern representation of a visual vibration. It's a tonal vibration that's been translated into a visual pattern. The tonal vibrations are these magical healing songs that are called ikaros, and the patterns are called kanna in their tradition. The visualization of these energetic frequencies and vibrations are on a different level that we can't perceive with our eyes and ears. The human eye and ear are only able to receive certain frequencies in this plane.
Welcome everyone to our next episode. Today I'm excited to dive deeper into the topics of weaving. How do we as conscious beings get to play with ancient lineages and ancient technologies to create new timelines? How could that be expressed in artistic form in our manifested reality? I'm really excited to have a special guest today. I met her through various synchronicities, literally guided to reach out to her as I saw her tapestries in this beautiful mall by World Trade Center in New York City. I had a calling to reach out and connect, and she's a Lyran sister too, so it's all always happens as it needs to. Robin Kang is a weaver and artist. She's a student of ancient lineages and has a lot of amazing wisdom to share with us today. Welcome, Robin, to Soul Communication. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here and really glad that this synchronicities happened.
When I saw your tapestries and amazing, huge tapestries, there's a lot of codes in them and a lot of mix of modern and digital work. And we'll dive deeper into it. But I always like to ask this question: where you are today, Robin? You've been on this path. What really excites you today about everything you do?
I feel like I'm on the precipice of an exciting time with my art work and my spiritual practices finally merging in a really expressive, open way publicly, where I feel like for many years I've been practicing visual arts and studying art and exhibiting my artwork globally and in museums, also having a spiritual practice and a study of different shamanic lineages or various spiritual lineages. And they were almost in separate categories. I really feel this exciting moment of the two really coming together and that expression visually of some of these mysteries and special lessons that have been planted and growing slowly inside of me. There's nothing more exhilarating than sharing that and sharing your truths and with an expression of beauty. So it feels exciting. And simultaneously, I'm having the opportunity to share some of the healing arts that I've learned along the way. A lot of things involving sound healing are manifesting recently with this exhibition at Brookfield Place. I also had the opportunity to do a sound bath in the atrium in alignment with the opening. This was just something that I don't think would have been possible before the pandemic. because there's just a new openness to wellness in a corporate world. And so to have a sound bath in a corporate and commercial space near the World Trade Center in New York City is just mind blowing. That manifested, but also super exciting. And so that exhilaration is something that I'm still riding this beautiful wave of, okay, how do we continue this path and where else shall we be guided next?
I love it because I don't think you know, but I'm also a sound healer. Too bad I missed that sound healing, but I could only imagine the impact it had on the place. I feel like we bring in certain light codes to these places that need a little more of a light into the mainstream or corporate places where people just start getting curious, like something within them shifts where these light barriers bring in this beauty into the world. And sometimes the codes themselves, they have to be subtle, like through the beauty of the tapestries. I love that it was happening for you and it's manifest. And that means the world is ready and the people are ready.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, before COVID, we couldn't imagine this. And I know this building really closely. So the fact this was happening there made me so happy. So take us, Robin, back into how you got into this work. You were mentioning you're doing shamanic work, but also the weaving aspect of it. How did it all collide for you and this incredible pieces manifest themselves? Take us through your journey.
I'm originally from Texas, and there is a beautiful kind of tradition within the Southwest, embracing weavers from South America and Mexico, and also Native American weavers from the Southwest. So I think I was surrounded by beautiful textiles growing up and had a strong interest in crafts and creativity. And went on to study arts in college and then eventually graduate school. And when I was in graduate school, I had the synchronicity to study at a special university that had one of the newest innovations in weaving technologies. It's a special loom that connects to a laptop. It's essentially a hybrid loom between a digital jacquard that has hand weaving operating capabilities. So it's hybrid almost with what might be happening in an industrial mill, with digital looms, and something that's more akin to a floor loom type of experience where the weaver is pushing foot pedals and sliding the weft yarns back and forth by hand using a boat shuttle and a bobbin. My journey in learning about this machine and was super exciting because I found this lineage of weaving. And weaving is a very ancient practice that is found all over the globe in every single culture. Essentially, weaving is different from other textile techniques because it involves a grid. There is the vertical threads, which are called the warp, and the horizontal threads called the weft. The way that they overlap and interact creates an architectural structure that determines which color threads come to the surface and which ones fall to the back, then makes the beautiful tapestry out of color. This led my path in many ways to study what were indigenous traditions of living traditions that were carrying some of the most ancient techniques and still practicing these ways. So this led me to travels to Guatemala, Mexico, the Andes of Peru, and also places in the Amazon of Peru, and even some Scandinavian research of the weavings there. Then I also simultaneously was interested in this connection between weaving and the invention of the computer, because weaving is a binary set of data and it's a technology. The specific loom that I work with, that is a jacquard loom. The first invention of jacquard was a huge innovation within the textile kind of progression and involves using punch cards to lift the threads in complicated ways. Later on, the punch cards became part of an invention that was the first kind of tabulation computer lineage. This connection between weaving and our current technology is really special. There's also another interesting moment that I found through research where women with textile experience were hired to literally weave the copper wires of what was called the LOL rope memory that eventually launched the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. And LOL stood for little old lady. So I found this really fascinating as an artist of this role of what can be relegated as like women's work often in cultures of this maybe humble craft of creating woven textiles, but actually that craft was really integral to some of the biggest developments in our technology. These two areas of research then started becoming my artistic pool to draw from to then utilize an actual version of this jacquard loom to weave my own expressions of these concepts and ideas. My work for a long time was involving something that felt ancient, looking at shapes that came from circuits and motherboard hardware, or what were these actually hand created core memory pieces that were made by these women. Also, some early integrated circuits and things like that, but looking at them as abstract shapes and comparing them to maybe some abstract shapes that we might see in ancient textiles that were 8-bit graphics, to use like a word
Mhm.
that might relate to some type of a video technology understanding, and realizing, oh wow, time and space is really blurring in this technology where the ancient is also the future. And this is really fun to play with creatively. So I began honing my craft with this special loom, and for many years weaving and then exhibiting my work in galleries and some museums all over the world. Also continuing my when I would go on pilgrimages to these various places to study with indigenous wisdom carriers who are still working with these techniques from unbroken lineages, naturally also started learning about their cosmologies and their spiritual practices, because the weavings themselves were information. They tell stories, or they're woven for specific purposes that are either for regalia, for ceremony, or for weddings, or for rites of passages when maybe like a daughter becomes a woman, or for altar cloths or cloths that are used to give offerings to mountain spirits or water spirits or things like that. These areas also started becoming important for me to research as well. Then I found myself really diving in deep and learning that, okay, to really know what these symbols mean, there's also some language study and some practices that go along with it. So within that, I've become a student of some of these spiritual lineages and seen them drastically change my life, also provide healing for my physical body, my emotional body, my mental body. Within those healing practices, I'm able to share certain things with others. Some of that has developed into energy work and sound healing. I'm also a sacred song carrier. So there's a lot of music that has sprung from these weavings. And I also see that
It's like the women sing together when they weave. Like, I can see that,
absolutely.
yeah, like, that
Yeah.
really goes together.
Yeah, that was yeah, you just picked up my frequency, what I was about to say.
Yeah.
That's the beauty, is many times because weaving is a very labor intensive process. There's a
Mhm.
lot of time that goes into it. And so you find your way to multitask with this repetitive process. There is a be here now moment because you do have to pay attention so you don't make a mistake. But there's also that freedom that happens when you have that skill that you can also then go to the meditative place. I find that music is what I've observed in many cultures. There's lots of song that can happen, or community. There's certain traditions where women can weave together. Men can also weave too. I don't want to leave them out. And all beings from all genders are welcome to this amazing craft. And so I do a lot of singing while I weave. And I think there's a lot of energetic codes that, like you said, embodied into the aura of the tapestry
Mm.
because I'm doing that. And I was also given some instructions about how to begin my weaving and to close my weaving as well, energetically, so that I'm creating a sacred object.
I feel it's like this wave just took over me. So I'm curious to hear more about this, the opening and the closing. I feel like that's an important
Mm.
container. Was it like a guidance you received?
From maybe two different sources. Once, when I was doing a Zen meditation retreat, and at this special moment, I was able to ask ahead of the retreat one special question. And I asked, like, how can I create sacred objects? I'm an artist. And their answer was to ask permission before you begin and to thank them when you finish. It was very simple, but it was very profound. And so I began doing that. Also, from one of my main teachers' lineages, when I've created other sacred tools for my healing practices, such as a feather smudge fan or a sacred drum. In those lineages, we start with by calling in the four directions, and
Mhm.
as well as, I guess I should say, the seven directions, because there's
7, I
also
was about
above.
to say it's 7 directions.
They corrected me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Mayan
and
lineage, and I think I would love to hear from you more about the Mayans. I want us to go into that place because I feel like we have some synchronicity there because I spent a
mm,
lot of time in Guatemala in 2012. Yeah, the seven directions I feel are more comprehensive because it's not
mhm,
just horizontal plane; it's also the
mhm,
vertical plane that
mhm,
it's all relevant here
mhm.
as also in the tapestry itself, right? You cover all the planes as well.
In the end, you also close the directions and thank them. So that's been my practice. Definitely, I was doing that for the works that you saw that are at the Brookfield Place exhibition right now, Galactic Garden.
What guidance you received for that specific exhibit?
One of the lineages that I've studied is the Shipibo Canibo lineage that come from the Amazon of Peru. They are amazing wisdom keepers of all the plant knowledge of the Amazon rainforest. Their cosmology is deeply connected to the various healing plants in the forest and the animals as well. They make these beautiful textiles that have a really strong vibration and energetic component. And I was first attracted to their textiles long before I knew anything about their cosmology, and found myself with an opportunity to go and study with them. And I learned that the textiles are a pattern representation of a visual vibration. And the vibration is actually of music. It's a tonal vibration that's been translated into a visual pattern. The tonal vibrations are these magical healing songs that are called ikaros, and the patterns are called kanna in their tradition. The visualization of these energetic frequencies and vibrations that exist, that are on a different level that we can't perceive with our eyes and ears. The human eye and ear are only able to receive certain frequencies in this plane. But when you work with various plants that have high vibrations, then you can start to actually see the vibrations and hear the vibrations that are on these kind of other transmissional frequencies. And many of these they use for healing. So I began studying with some curanderas and also working with the plants myself, and did some what's called like a dieta, where you are prescribed a plant by the healer and you take a time. It could be anywhere from 10 days to the longer ones could be a year, where you spend that time in the forest. Usually it's in solitude with a restricted, simple diet that doesn't have salt or sugar or certain things that maybe block the subtle energy of the plant. And then you are just communing with that plant in the forest in a meditation. This could be used for healing purposes of the body, mind, and spirit, but also the plants can open to you and give you lots of beautiful treasures and healing knowledge or creative knowledge. The works in Galactic Garden are literally a response to my experience of working with some of these magical plants in the Amazon rainforest. I had the opportunity for this commission project, which was commissioned by Arts Brookfield, which is an amazing, super supportive group for artists bringing artwork to commercial and public spaces all over New York City. And I knew the name of the gallery was called the Winter Garden Gallery, and I thought,
Mhm.
wow, this is a perfect opportunity to really channel this really deep, special experience that I've had in the Amazon rainforest. And it couldn't have opened at a more synchronistic time. We have New York Climate Week right now, and there's a lot of Indigenous elders from the rainforest here doing various talks at the UN. And it's also New York Textile Month, the month of
Mm.
September. So it just felt this is exactly where I want to bring this conversation to downtown Manhattan and really understand the importance of the Amazon rainforest, the importance of plant technologies, and then just to bring that beauty. I used a wide range of materials in these tapestries, from hand dyed, natural dyed alpaca to various bright rainbow colored synthetic yarns, and then these special iridescent yarns, because I wanted to mimic this crystalline glow of the forest that I experienced when I was working with some of these plant beings in their realm in this other dimensional space, and to really bring that as much as I could into this physical place, this physical dimension, to give that energy so we can see the beauty of the forest and realize that we are part of it. We're part of that energy. We are part of this natural world. We're not a separate entity. And how we care for the forest is so important, especially right now. There's actually a lot of fires happening, and there's a huge impact of how that is going to affect our personal lives in whatever, wherever we're living in a comfortable city or suburb. The rainforest has an effect on us.
They say
So
the
I,
rainforest is the lungs of the planet, especially the Amazon. So I hear you. It's I don't think people really realize how important are these lungs to this body, to the planet Earth. I didn't know even all the pieces of your story, but I felt it through the tapestry, and that iridescent shimmer really resonated. And I have spent a lot of time in the forest too, in the 2012, 2011. Like I went through a whole shamanic journey with plant medicines as well in South Colombia and Peru, and work with a lot of also indigenous tribes and different medicines. Ayahuasca medicine that I do talk about here. But I also took some plant medicines in one of the dietas I did in Peru. That's part of actually a documentary called Sacred Science. That land doesn't exist anymore, but it was a beautiful documentary if anyone wants to see. It's called Sacred Science, where they bring these terminal ill patients to the land and they put them on huts and they give them various plant medicines and Robin mentioning, and then seeing how they evolve and how they embrace their journey and death and life and all in between. It's just so incredible. So there was one medicine that, as you were talking, profoundly impacted me. It was called Churasananga. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's this
Mhm.
needle prickly sensation through your whole body, but was given that to recalibrate my nervous system and some like bodily issues that I had, sciatica and things like that. And it was a really incredible experience. I did only for 3 days, and it
Mhm.
just weakens your body and you become one with it. I experienced the ceremonies, but this was me communing also in a dieta setting. And I can see how that can open all kinds of channels for light, for seeing things. Like you said, our eye is not always able to perceive. And I think we have all these gifts. Like I always say on this podcast, we have all the possible communication we need. It's just so subtle and we just need to really pay attention. And I think these plant medicines are almost like meant to connect us to the deeper aspects of the planet, but also these like more subtle realms. Like the fairies exist, the elementals exist. I'm actually doing a cleanse right now, like a famous 369 cleanse by medical medium, and it's for liver. I'm on day 5 right now. I'm seeing how I might becoming much more sensitive to the environment around me, but also my field is so much larger because I'm able to hold more light now too, and the whole system is recalibrating. So I'm observing. I love that you were able to bring the journey into the work itself and be supported through and our community to do that. That's, I think, the future of where we're going, right? To share that with.
Yeah, it felt really exciting, and there's so many more magical plants to be inspired by, and other things too. There's many people who have had deep experiences in the Amazon with plant dietas in some of these style lineages, but then they come back to the native lands where they're from, and they realize, oh my gosh, rosemary is a plant spirit,
Mm.
and lemongrass, and sage, and all these other plants that are here and that are medicine too. And I can communicate with these plants also. And there's ancestral lineages within the DNA of our bodies that remembers those plants because they were the first pharmacy for humanity. We could be intentional with the plants that we have here. I think doing things like cleanses or praying to the plant, having an intention and saying, okay, I want to work with you, and consuming it every day, taking baths with the plants, or people make various sprays. There's a lot of ways to energetically connect with the plants that are accessible. Right now, I've been working with rose.
I love
Just,
rose.
I love rose so much.
It's a very high vibrational plant. I think it's 352 or something like that, and frequency in love is 526. So this is the highest you can get to rose. Amma, the Hagen Guru, was here a few weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I got to buy, because I make also oils and sprays and all that. So I work with alchemy and herbs closely myself, and I got her rose oil from her garden. And
Wow.
that was just like, ooh, that was a
Wow.
incredible rose to experience. It's very heart
Wow.
opening for sure. I add rose to cacao ceremonies that I do into the cacao. It's just really high vibrational, beautiful plant. You probably know Mary Magdalene, that whole lineage is very connected to the rose too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. And that opens even deeper. One of the other lineages that I've studied that comes from Brazil is very connected to the Mother Mary, the Santo Daime and Umbandaime, which I was actually at a beautiful equinox ceremony yesterday, state during the elemental spirits of Oshun and the fresh waters and the waterfall, and another spirit that's considered what the term is called a cabocla from the forest of Brazil, which are like forest spirits, but her name is Jurema, and she is basically this Amazonian princess that is the knowledge keeper of all of the herbs, the magical herbs in the forest and plants that are used for healing. She shoots her arrows her that are of love, made of love, and works with humanity for healing. What I love is that as you start tuning into these vibrations, you realize this is a knowledge that all different cultures have. We are just now waking up and remembering again, and hopefully, this knowledge can be embraced and embodied so that we can care for our planet in a good way and also heal our bodies, heal the various ailments that are present on our planet. Many of these plants are cure a lot of the things that we're suffering from as a species right now. It's exciting to talk about this and also to embody it and to make art about it.
Yeah,
That's the fun
absolutely.
part. Yeah.
I want to go back to weaving and specifically the concept of the spider woman, because we're talking about humanity, where it's going, and how weaving through centuries, the women, divine feminine, even though it was suppressed, it was kept on happening through these beautiful textiles. I have spent time in Guatemala and the Mayan lands. What you've learned from the Mayan lands. I have so many different tapestries. Actually, this is one of my tapestries. This is from,
Wow.
yeah,
The colors
the
are always just
colors
so
are
bright
so,
and vibrant.
and the earrings. I've started wearing all of these bright colors. I think after
Mhm.
I spend time in South America, Central America, recognizing that we are the full spectrum beings. We have all these rainbow colors of light, and I put my black away and I started embracing color.
New York artist where all black is the chic way. I did this exact same thing. Now my wardrobe is like a rainbow. And then it depends on which color spectrum frequency do I want to be today or what do I need today. for my own balance. There's a lot of questions in that. Yeah, weaving it's a technology. It's like an infinite process. It's a simple structure, but there's an infinite variation of the ways that you can change things and use pattern and use color. And so it becomes an amazing process of exploration. The weavers in the Mayan weavers specifically use what's called a backstrap loom, which is a type of loom that is maybe one of the simplest structurally of all the looms, and it's also portable. So it just involves certain sticks, and then there's a careful process of how, and a deep technology. It's not easy just because it's simple, actually, to do what's called the wind the warp, which is the long vertical threads. Then they get tied on the end to what would be a rope or something, and that gets tied around a tree historically. And then the part that's the loom itself then has a strap around it that then you would fasten around your waist. And then you would lean back against the weight of the tree, and that would create the tension
Hmm.
for the warp threads to be taut. So then you are able to use some of the other elements of the loom technology to lift certain threads that you want to lift, and then use, I know in like the Quechua and the Andes also use this backstrap loom weaving style as well. They have a llama bone that is used to, like the needle, to create the under over architectural weave structure. But there's different sticks and versions that various cultures use. Then this process becomes, it's meditative. There's a focus that you have to have. There's also a memorization of learning. These are the patterns that maybe culturally I have to choose from my village, that usually the patterns represent animals or plants or landscape or humans doing different things or birds. They become a story that then the weaver
Yeah.
can, oh, I know how to make a bird and
Yeah.
I know how to do this. So then I can weave together a story in my cloth, and it becomes interesting to study. Okay, I can recognize this village makes their birds like this, and then that village makes their birds in a different style. And then you can start to you can determine, oh, this is the location of where this textile was created culturally. And it's a language, it's a visual language, and so you can just hearing an accent or something as strong as a word, and then also material choices all come from certain cultures are known for these colors in a certain way, and all of that becomes really special. And it becomes significant because when someone's walking down the street and they're wearing a certain color and a certain pattern, they're from that village.
I had
um,
that experience in Guatemala when I was living at the
mhm,
lake, like Azitlan. There were like 5 villages, and I could tell where that each woman was based on, because at some point you start learning the patterns and recognizing. I'm thinking even bigger, like on the national level. I come from Eastern Europe, like Ukrainian weavery is different from the Russian, but they still have these beautiful costume embroidered, and it's a little different, but
mhm.
it's a traditional dress.
Yeah, all cultures have this. There are certain cultures that have maintained and kept their traditions, and then others that have either been forced to because they've been transported to new lands or migrated or colonialized. I feel like just commercialized, where our brains have been, oh no, we advertise that we have to buy and dress a certain way. Slowly, we've lost what were some of these like ancient identities that were part of the textiles. Yeah, it becomes an interesting, it's just a deep place to study, which makes it fun for an artist because I find it's infinite and there's always a new textile to discover and something interesting behind it too, of what its purpose was, how the materials are made. I feel like I focus a lot on the structure of the weaving, the cloth itself, and the symbolism. But then there's a whole world of how the threads were created.
That's another
And there's
rabbit
a cultural practice. Who took care of the sheep
Yeah.
or the alpaca? And then in certain cultures, there's offerings and a time of year when you shear them, and the communication with the animals and the care of how that happened. There was a way to do that ceremonially and with respect to the animals. There's, of course, an industrial complex right now that doesn't honor that at all.
No. You lost all that sacredness and
Absolutely.
intentionality and taking care of the animals. Even with the food, you can feel when the frequency is off. Like I just had this experience. I just started eating meat recently, last 5, 6 months. That's why I'm doing the cleanse. I feel like my body needed to reset. I had an experience with chicken. I ate a couple of times, even though it was organic chicken, my body started rejecting vibrationally. It wasn't
Mm.
the food itself and digestion, but it was like vibration. Something was off. I was like woozy, like I had a drink or something and I don't drink. So I started connecting to it and I was like, what is this? And I realized it's the conditions of the chicken. Even though they say it's organic, it's still cooked in. The animal is vibrationally is suffering. My body, it's very sensitive and attuned to these frequencies. And so it's what we consume when we wear, right? And how do we treat
Mm-hmm.
these animals? And these cultures knew that it's all connected. It's it just makes sense to ceremonially take care of the animals because you're going to take the wool, you're going to thread the clothes you're going to wear on you. It's sensual.
I feel like it's the consciousness around it, and
Yeah.
to understand that all of it is a vibration, all of it is energy. I'm also very sensitive, and there are certain things that I have to refrain from now energetically, especially living in New York City, that I used to enjoy. And that's okay. That's part of my journey now. And to maintain the frequency that I want to hold, it's worth it.
I agree with you. I think we just need to be clear about our channel and how pure it is and consciously make these choices even in these environments. So Robin, I'm always curious from metaphysical perspective because I'm a metaphysical educator, where I had experience also with weaving is in these more hyperdimensional spaces, whether you're in plant medicine or not, where I've seen that when we talk about timelines and we talk about nature of reality, there is a pattern to our creation. Also, this like aspect of us stepping in embodying the understanding that we are the creators of our reality. There's a weaving aspect happens. Everyone talks about a manifestation, but it's really like we reweaving these patterns and we're creating new patterns. I'm seeing right now a lot of us who are way showers or awakening and building foundation for others to step into what some call new earth reality. I feel a lot of it has to do with weaving. It's like we repatterning and creating new patterns. So I'm curious from your perspective, because you're so deeply in the process of weaving, if there's any lessons that could be applicable for that.
Mhm. One of the interesting aspects that I found the similarities between weaving, the process of weaving on a what would maybe be like a floor loom, and thinking about coding in a computer and that
Mm,
binary information. You can think about it as a graph. So there is on the top portion of the graph data that gets plugged in. That is, I'm going to describe the loom part first. That would be the way that the loom is set up. The how many threads go this, or how many threads are there, and how are they would in a floor loom, how would they be connected to, what type of pattern are they connected to the pedals that would allow them to lift? And then on the other side of the grid, you would have the the choices that you make to each to push certain pedals at different times to lift certain things. And so in a way, these become also a series of number sequences. So we've got a number sequence here, and then in the middle section becomes the pattern that is created by the graph of the two. This is in a way what happens in coding on a computer. There is this coded language that then becomes the data that we see on the screen in the same way. And also, perhaps, maybe our reality is this sense of this virtual graph of maybe there are certain restrictions or a setup that we have in a dimensional plane that we are experiencing with time and space here on Earth, but then there's also a set of our choices and the consequences of those choices that then are going to create the pattern that is our life. So essentially, we have the restriction setup of this reality of the dimensional plane where we've incarnated, and the restrictions of time and space within that. And then on the other plane, we have our choices. And these are choices that we get to make, this free will option. And our reality is a sense then created by the choices that we create within the structural setup that we've incarnated into. And so we are manifestors, but there is also a structure here. And so a skillful weaver might know, okay, I want this pattern to make diamond shapes and in these colors. And so you can be intentional by your choices to manifest that. I feel like this is something that I'm learning still. There's perhaps we all have a structure of some karma mixed in there too, some things that we are energetically working out from other lifetimes or maybe cultural experiences and lineages that we've decided to incarnate into to help heal. And but then there's also within that the choices of our free will that we can choose to create whatever tapestry we want. There are rules, and but then knowing the rules allows you this freedom. And this is the whole thing within as a weaver, rather than being an artist with something a little bit more freeing, like painting or something, where you have complete autonomy of creative expression. I have a structure. If I don't work with the structure, then the threads won't be mixed together and the cloth will not actually be a cloth. It'll just be a mess of threads. It really is a technology of learning how to work within this a structural setup to achieve the outcome that I want. And that is a craft.
Beautifully said. That is absolutely an art of learning how to navigate this dimensional reality. We're like hackers. We're here to bust the systems in some ways. And I think that's part of the embodiment process and knowing that we are really powerful beings. It's just we've been repressed through all these eons to think otherwise. But now, as we reawakening, the plant medicines are helping us to know that we are that light, we are the sound, we are all of these patterns, and we learn how to weave new beautiful tapestries. So thank you for your perspective. I knew you'll have like a different eye on it, and it's really interesting to hear from how you actually are working with the loom.
Thanks. It's exciting to talk about. It's a specialization that somehow found myself down this rabbit hole. And I think it can be appreciated on many levels. People don't need to know anything about it, and hopefully they can just feel a vibration and feel the beauty and see something there. But then also, if there's more that they want to learn, there's more present, and so that feels where I want to be.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Robin, for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. I'm going to post some links to your website and check Robin's work wherever you are. It sounds like you're around the world with some of your pieces, so virtual as well.
I'm going to have some exhibitions coming up later this year. There's going to be one in Austin, Texas, and another one in London, and hopefully some other things too that are brewing. And I'm also partnering with a dear friend and another shamanic sister to do a pilgrimage to the sacred valley of Peru, which is some of the backstrap loom weavers from the Quechua lineage. And we're going to study natural plant dyes in their ways, and that's going to be in May. Anyone's listening and that's calling your heart, come with me. Let's go experience these things together.
Sacred Valley is magical. Where are you guys going to be? I love Pisac and that whole area.
We're going to do a tour. We're going to partner with the Center of Traditional Textiles of Cusco, and they work with the different villages throughout the Sacred Valley. So we have this amazing, rare opportunity to visit different villages and experience the nuances of their different techniques. And we'll also see some ruins and sacred sites and other magical things. We want to support the true artisans and all aspects. So even family members of theirs are going to be the ones that are hired to be the bus drivers and things like that. So we really want all of the energy to go to support the artisans that are truly doing the work to keep their traditions alive and doing it with organic ways and utilizing the natural plant dyes and preserving their traditions. So that's the vision.
Beautiful, magical. Thank you so much, Robin. Check out Robin's work and her upcoming incredible tour to Peru and experience that. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode. For more information, please visit the website tianadivine.com. We are offering different programs, workshops, retreats, as well as one-on-one work such as quantum healing hypnosis, crystalline soul healing, and more on sourcelanguage.org, offering a digitized course. It's self-paced, where you can open up to your divine gift of light language. I'm Diana Mara Divine, and keep connecting with your higher self